Hello and welcome back, Goats, to the Big Blue Purple channel. Today, I'm going to be ranking all the bosses in Elden Ring. Well, not all of them, but all the main bosses. And I might do the mini bosses on a separate list, but I'm thinking it's kind of hard to compare like main bosses in quality to the mini bosses. There's kind of a huge distinction there. So we'll start with the main bosses. I have the most to say about these and the most feelings towards them. So let's just dive right into it. And I'm also just going to delete the F tier because I don't think any boss on this list is particularly horrible. And just to lay out the ground rules, I think S is a fantastic boss, A is a great boss, B is a slightly above average boss or a good boss, C is an average boss, and D is a below average boss. So let's get into it. Starting with Estelle. Estelle is fucking sick. Estelle visually is one of my favorite bosses in this entire game. But in terms of a fight, I don't think Estelle is anywhere above a B tier. Estelle has a lot of cool looking moves, but he's not particularly interesting to fight once you've done it a couple times. There's also more than one Estelle in the game. I fought two, but I do believe there's three. Um, and in New Game Plus, I fought him a bunch more times. Once you figure out Estelle, he is quite an easy boss. But in terms of his arena and his design and all of that stuff, he at least gets a B tier. Such a fucking cool boss. I love the giant eye in his head that like looks around at you while he's moving around, and just the whole cosmic identity of his fight. It's so awesome. And speaking of crazy cosmic identity, Elden Beast. Elden Beast has at least an A tier for me. The only thing keeping him from an S tier is that he runs around like a little bitch, depending on the RNG you get, and it can be really, really tedious. I did play an intelligence build, so it wasn't a huge problem for me because if he did run away, I could still cast spells. But I know I have a couple friends who did melee playthroughs, and they did not like that about this boss. Otherwise, his design and his move set and the big fucking ring attack he does when he goes in the sky and summons like the Elden rings down on you, shit is so cool. Absolutely fantastic final boss, and one of the best in the series in my opinion. Better final boss than all of the Dark Souls games in my eyes. All right, next up is going to be our first D tier. Fire Giant. Fire Giant, it's unfortunate for me to say Fire Giant is a below average boss because in terms of design, Fire Giant is so cool. Especially that second phase cutscene that used to crash your game, by the way, when the game first came out. If you were on your horse when Fire Giant fucking cut his leg off, your game would just close straight up. Like it could not handle Fire Giant. So I beat this boss while that was still an issue, and it made me kind of constantly be conscious of, is he almost at half health? Okay, I need to jump off my horse. And fighting with a summon was extra problematic because of that. I ended up just barely. I only summoned in the second phase because in the first phase, if he like if your summon happened to hit his leg, I was using like a +4 mimic tier, and if it happened to hit his leg and and bring him below that halfway point, that's it. Your game was closed. So that left kind of a foul taste in my mouth with the Fire Giant. And then his second phase is just it's literally worse than Ancient Dragon, dude. I've never seen a boss in any Souls game with more health than this shit. Like Ancient Dragon looks like a bitch compared to this motherfucker. Just a third of his health bar feels like the size of Ancient Dragon's health bar. It is ridiculous. And it's unfortunate that it has to be that way because like I said, the eye in his chest and his design in general is so cool. But the fact that he's a mandatory boss and the fact that he has so much damn health and just isn't all that fun to fight, like a very simple move set, you just get punished super hard for making a mistake. I think he's a D tier boss. All right, so next up we have Godric. Godric as a second boss is fucking incredible. I think I'm gonna put him in the B tier because I don't think he's quite as good as Elden Beast, but I do think he's a little bit better than Estelle, or around the same quality. Um, the only thing that kind of sours my opinion of him is later in the game you can find a Godfroy in a Effergale, and Godfroy is just Godric Phase 1 again. They reused him. And it kind of made him feel like a mini boss to me. Even so, your first fight with him in the cutscene where he chops his own arm off and grafts a dragon head onto it is so badass. I absolutely love it. And it left like such a good impression on me starting Elden Ring. I was like, holy shit. This is the second main boss. So yeah, Godric absolutely gets at least a B tier. Depending on how this list shapes up, I may move him up to the A tier, depending on what else I put in the B tier. But for now, B tier sounds good. Alright, Horalu or Godfrey, the First Elden Lord. Godfrey is a really good fight, and I think he's at least A tier. I don't have a whole lot to say about him because I didn't have a super hard time with him, but the whole like theme of this fight and like the warrior honor bullshit is so sick. I love Godfrey. And his second phase where he just starts grabbing your ass and doing Zangief fucking moves from Street Fighter, that shit is so cool. Hope they put this motherfucker in Tekken 8 or something, because he is a straight out of a fighting game. I don't really know what else to say about him, though. I just think he's a good fight, and I enjoyed fighting him on all my playthroughs. Alright, next up is, I think this is Lich Dragon Fortizax. The only problem I have with this fight is that you can find it really late in the game and just completely steamroll it and miss out on how sick this fight actually is. This fight is fucking dope. One of the coolest dragon fights in the entire game, second only to another boss that we will talk about later. Such a fucking awesome dragon boss, and if you do yourself a favor and fight him as early as you can, not necessarily as early as you can, but fight him early enough, like around when you fight Fia's champion, so that you can experience him in his full glory as a challenging boss and not just steamroll his ass. But yeah, I think he deserves B tier. I need to fight him a bit more. Maybe you could move up to A tier, but overall, I think B tier is a fair placement for him, considering I do think there's another dragon boss on this list that is a little bit better. Alright. This is a big one. Millennia. I'm sure a lot of people have a lot of strong feelings about Millennia. Some people think she's D tier. Some people probably think she's F tier. Some people probably think she's S tier. And I think she's A tier. And the reason I think she's A tier is because she's almost the best boss in the game, but that spinny bullshit Beyblade weapon art move she does is ridiculously bullshit. I could not figure out how to dodge it. The methods I saw online were using the step Ash of War, I think it's called Bloodhound Step or something, or just blocking it with a Great Shield and then dodging the other two hits. But if you are in her face when she does this attack, which you're going to obviously be in her fucking face because you're hitting her, you're just going to get smoked, and she's going to get all her health back if you survive. And I think the healing is great because the healing disincentivizes relying on a summon, and I think that's really cool. Because when you summon in Millennia, it just turns your summon into this fucking punching bag that restores her HP. And I think that's a really cool way of like guaranteeing that this boss remains difficult regardless of if you decide to summon or not. Obviously, Mimic Tier pre-patch was absolutely cracked and was still worth using in this fight because it was so good. But I'm wondering if now on current patch, maybe no summons will be the play for her. But yeah, I think A tier is a fair placement. If someone in the comments could tell me how to dodge her spinny shit consistently at point blank, then hey, she can absolutely move up to S tier. But I feel like that move just had too much RNG to it to make the fight an S tier for me. It's so fun otherwise. It's such a fucking great fight. Like a Sword Saint Ishin pace, fast as fuck, like sword fight. But that one attack just kind of ruins it for me. And as for her second phase, I also think it's fantastic. I think the Scarlet Rot buildup is perfectly fine. I don't think it's too unfair. And it just forces you to play with even more precision than the first phase may have. Alright, Malachith, the Black Blade. I think Malachith is going to be our first S tier boss. And Malachith is S tier to me because not only is the Malachith phase fucking awesome, but the Beast Clergyman phase at the beginning of the fight is just as good in my opinion. It is just as brutal, extremely difficult. Beast Clergyman can chain like all of his attacks into each other, so you can't just get greedy with him and dodge one thing and hit him. You kind of have to watch what he's doing, and I think that's super fucking cool. And his second phase, where he has the transformation and the cutscene, shit is so raw. I love his design. I love the way you fight him. It's such a fun and like intricate fight. I don't know how to put it. I just love Malachith. He might be my favorite fight in this entire goddamn game, but we'll get to that. And hey, followed up by another S tier boss in my opinion. We have Mog Lord of Blood. The first time I fought Mog, I actually had no idea that the wondrous physic existed, that you could block his blood circle attacks. So I just had to heal through them. And even with that into consideration, I still think this fight is S tier. Even if there was no Wondrous Physic that could block that and you were forced to heal through it, I still love this fight and I think it's S tier. Because his second phase, where he gets his fucking health back, grows these giant black demon wings and starts flying around like a motherfucker, it's way too cool, man. Way too cool. I also know, if you guys didn't know this, if you bleed Mog, it actually heals him, similar to how Mytha in Dark Souls 2 heals when you poison her, or when she's in poison. So that's a really cool touch to Mog. He really is the Lord of Blood. Such a badass edgelord boss. Definitely an S tier in my book. I super enjoyed fighting him. He's not as difficult as Malachith, Millennia, or even Elden Beast in my opinion, but he's just so fun to fight, and the music in that fight fucking bangs too. And hey, maybe I'll rank the music of these fights too at some point, but for now we'll just talk about the bosses. Alright, next up is Morgot. I love Morgot. Morgot's great. I don't think he's exactly S tier, and the reason I don't think he's exactly S tier is because I think he's a little bit on the easy side. And I don't like sitting here and being like, oh, the boss is too easy, fucking D tier, or whatever. Because this isn't a difficulty ranking, and something like Abyss Watchers is one of my favorite bosses in Dark Souls 3 without being particularly difficult. I just think that Morgot, as a fight, could have been more difficult and could have been better. But otherwise, I do really like Morgot. I think he's at least A tier. I like how he follows you around the game and shit talks you and tells you that he's going to get his fucking revenge. And then you fight him like this. And his weapon is so damn cool. I can't wait to try out a dex build and use it. Morgot is at least an A tier for me. He could be an S tier, but I think I'm going to put him in the A tier because I don't think he's quite as good as Mog or Malachith, but he's really, really fucking cool. One of my favorite characters in the game in general. Alright, and here is the dragon boss I was talking about earlier. I think Dragon Lord Placidus is an A tier boss, and he could have been an S tier boss if he wasn't broken. If you guys don't know, or if it didn't happen to you, Placidus can randomly just stop playing the game. Like, he could just start standing still and doing absolutely nothing. And there is no way to fix his AI. He just does that. At least from my experience. I tried walking around in circles and waiting for him to snap out of it, and he never did. So, that bug, unfortunately, really kills the immersion with this fight, because it's such a badass dragon fight when he comes down from the sky and does his big lightning claw bullshit, and there's all the thunder clouds. I love the arena you fight him into, how you fight him outside of time. Like, this fight is so stacked. This fight is so sick. If it weren't for that fucking bug where he stands still, he could have been an S tier fight. He's not particularly challenging. Like, I wouldn't say he's like one of the harder bosses. I think he's like medium difficulty, somewhere around Estelle or like Fortizax. But he's so damn cool aesthetically and just his arena and all that. He's at least an A tier for me. I do love me some Dragon Lord Placidus. Alright, and on to the other final boss now, Ratagon. I'm going to rank Ratagon with Elden Beast, because I think they're around the same quality for me. I like Elden Beast from a design perspective more, and like arena. Obviously, it's just so damn cool. This entity you can't even comprehend that you're fighting. But Ratagon is just a great, like, fast-paced, like, other dude fight. You're just fighting another dude with a weapon, and it's fast-paced, and he's throwing these fucking lightning spears at you, and it's great. It's a good time. Ratagon, definitely A tier for me. I really do think that you can argue both of these bosses into the S tier. It's such a fantastic conclusion to the game. I'm actually just going to move them up to the top of A tier. Maybe we will order these in tiers at the end, but for now, I'll just leave it as it is, okay? Radon. Radon is another S tier fight. And if you disagree, fuck you, because Radon is fucking awesome. I love the build up to the Radon fight. Like, just this, you're going to this festival, and you're going to kill this motherfucker. Like, this festival is based around you killing this motherfucker. That is all. It's going to be this warrior duel. And you go in there, and you bum rush this asshole with like 10 other dudes, and it's still a challenge. I mean, I fought him before 1.03. I have not actually fought him yet after the patch. I should go ahead and do that at some point. But I've heard from people that they kind of turned him into a bitch, and that's unfortunate because I thought Radon was great, and being that he's an optional boss, I feel like a nerf is a little bit unnecessary, but hey. At least now, maybe it'll be more manageable to go ahead and try to solo him. That's probably what I'll do on my next playthrough. But I just love the scope of summoning all those motherfuckers and rushing him. It's great. It's such a cool fight. It's a gimmick you can opt into, and that's something I really appreciate. Whereas like with a fight like Reichhardt, you're not really opting in to use the Serpent Hunter. It's kind of a requirement. I'm sure you can beat him without it, especially with like ranged options, but like nobody's gonna walk up to Reichhardt and beat him with their bare hands. And hey, maybe someone will prove me wrong. That'd be fucking badass. But because he leaves that fire around him, you can't really just go and hit him with melee weapons. You're forced to use the Serpent Hunter. But anyway, this isn't about Reichhardt right now. The point I'm trying to make is I really like how Radon's like gimmick, quote unquote, is something you opt into, and you can absolutely enjoy fighting him without it. And fighting him with it is just as enjoyable. It's such a fucking cool fight. Absolutely an S tier fight for me. I could ramble about how badass Radon is for days. S tier. Alright, C tier. That's where I'm going to put Regal Ancestral Spirit. I think Regal Ancestral Spirit is C tier. Average boss. The reason I think this boss is average is because it's not very memorable in terms of like a boss fight. I don't really remember what this boss did. I remember it swinging with its antlers a couple of times and doing some like self heals and jumping up into the air that one time and like coming down and landing. It's not a super memorable fight. What is memorable is that fucking cool ass arena and the way you get to him. I really like how it's kind of like the Farron Keep. You go light all the flames and then you can go up to the corpse of the ancestral spirit, go into it, and then go fight it. Really, really cool concept. But just in terms of like as a boss fight, I think he's not bad. He's not like annoying to fight. He's not below average. I just think he is the average here. Not a particularly special boss, but you know, not a bad boss at all. Alright, next up is Ranala. Now, Ranala's a weird boss because her first phase kind of sucks. It's just like a gimmick, like Deacons of the Deep. You go and you swing at the little fuckers and then you knock her down and kill her. But it's such a fast phase that like it's pretty inoffensive. Like I'm not sitting there going, oh god, I have to do Ranala phase 1 again. Like no problem. And her second phase visually is absolutely fucking great. I love it. I love the aesthetic. It looks like Rom's boss room from Bloodborne. It's so damn cool. And the summons she has when she summons the giant dragon and shit, I love it. So damn cool. The only issue I kind of have with Ranala is you can kind of just dodge everything she does by running in a circle around her. Like all of her spells will just kind of miss if you keep running in a circle around her. And it just kind of makes the fight trivial. I think she's absolutely the easiest of the lords. Like even Godric included, I think she's easier. But I still love the scope of this fight, and I still think it's an above average fight. If it was in any other Souls game, I think it would be a much more like standout fight. But because Elden Ring has so many goddamn good bosses, it ends up being just like a above average fight and not like a fantastic fight or an amazing fight. Anyway, our last guy here, Reichhardt. I was talking a bit about him earlier, about how you're kind of forced to use the gimmick. And, well, that may be a bad thing for some people. I think this is like the Yorm Storm Ruler type fight perfected. It is so fucking cool. I love the way it feels to use the Serpent Hunter. You have a whole moveset. It's not just one weapon arm that you're using to kill the boss. You have an R1, you have an R2, you have an L2 that stuns, and you can block with the L1 too, to avoid some damage from certain hits. Reichhardt is fucking sick. I love his design. I love his arena. The only issue I have with Reichhardt is that he does a little much damage. I went to Reichhardt with 15 Vigor. I was playing a Sorcerer. It was my first playthrough. I had no idea how important Vigor was in this game yet. And Reichhardt was just mauling me. So I ended up, after 2 hours of attempting this asshole, I ended up going and respecking at Ranala, putting literally all of my points into Vigor out of just pure fucking rage, going back to him, beating him, saying fuck you a bunch, and then realizing like a day later how much I loved the fight. Because Reichhardt is just so damn cool. it's one of those gimmick bosses done perfectly right, in my opinion. I don't think he's S tier, but I do think he can go in the A tier for what he achieves. Like, if Reichhardt was in Dark Souls 3, this motherfucker would be like the best boss in the game, I swear. He is so good. So anyway, that concludes placing them. How about we go ahead and rank them in tiers now? So these two don't matter. B tier. My favorite boss in the B tier is probably Lich Dragon Fortis X. This looks about right, actually. I would probably order it like this. I don't know. Estelle and Ranala are actually very similar to me because they both have really, really cool arenas. I prefer Estelle's design as a actual boss, but Ranala is cool, and I like her summons. I don't know. The only thing that kind of hurts Estelle for me is that you can find more Estelles later. But like, if we just kind of put that to the side and just look at Estelle, I think I like Estelle more. All right, A tier. This would be the hard part. I think. Yeah. Millennia, Ratagon, and Elden Beast can all kind of be moved around. Like, I think all of them are fucking top of A tier. Great bosses. I think Morgot is better than Hoarah-Loux. I think Hoarah-Loux is better than Dragonlord Placidus, and I think Reichhardt is at the bottom. This looks about right to me. You could definitely move a lot of these around, to be honest. They're very interchangeable. Like, I could say I like, Dragonlord more than these two, but I could also say I like Morgot the most, or I could say I like Hoarah-Loux the most. Today, I'm feeling like I like Morgot the most. This could absolutely change. I think Reichhardt's just at the bottom because, again, he is a gimmick fight. Like, his replay value isn't going to be as great because you're not going to sit there going, ooh, I get to try a new build against Reichhardt. Like, no, you don't. You're going to be fighting Reichhardt the same way you've always fought Reichhardt. So that is the A tier. I'm pretty happy with this order. And Ratagon and Elden Beast, like, they are the same spot to me. Like, I will rank them as one boss because they are one boss. And I think both of them are pretty much equal in quality. Like, the scope of Elden Beast is far more interesting, but he has problems, like, running away like a bitch. Whereas Ratagon doesn't quite have that amazing scope and arena, but he's a really, really good, just, like, beat-em-up other dude fight. I'm a sucker for those just, like, one-on-one dudes the same size as you. You're just fucking beating each other up with weapons. I love that shit. And Ratagon gets that perfectly. So, yeah. Anyway, I've talked about these bosses enough. That's what I think. And as for the S tier, I think this will actually be pretty hard for me too because, again, these could go in any order. But based off how I'm feeling, I think I would put Radon first. I think Radon is currently my favorite boss in the game. If I fight him again post-patch, maybe that'll change. But I feel like difficulty won't really impact it that much. It's the scope of this fight and the setup of this fight that really makes it as good as it is, the arena and all that. And then I think Mog and Malachith are totally interchangeable, but I think Mog is a little less bullshit than Malachith can be sometimes, so I guess Mog can have the upper hand here. Either way, they're all absolutely S tier bosses. Radon is probably my favorite boss in the game, if I had to decide. And that sums up my ranking of the Elden Ring bosses. If you enjoyed this video at all, leave a like, leave a comment. Let me know what you think of the ranking, who your favorite boss was, who your least favorite boss is. And if you want to see a ranking of the mini bosses, let me know, because I would totally be down to rank them. I don't want to compare the main bosses to the mini bosses, because I don't think it's a fair ranking. Like, they're just leagues apart in design. So yeah, that sums everything up. Thanks for watching, goats. Leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll catch you in the next one.